How's it going, everybody? In this video, we'll be breaking down Season 13 of Cosmic Crucible, teams and setup that I will personally be using to help myself climb in Season 13, a couple teams that we use to win the Envoy Tournament, and I want to share all that with you, and let's not waste a single second. Let's go ahead and break this down. Quick reminder of the room rules. Stage 1, Striker characters on successful attack, they will be applying bleed. Raider and Skirmisher characters on successful attack, if the target has bleed, they'll perform an ISO attack. So kind of an inversion on what we are used to from the ISO system, where Raider and Skirmisher characters put out vulnerables and Striker characters with the ISO attack. Instead, Striker characters will put out bleeds, which is damage, and then you'll still get ISO attacks from Raiders and Skirmishers. So tips to success for this one, guys: have great opening characters abuse that Striker rule. Green Goblin Classic, Black Panther Shuri, any sort of really fast character that can get off as a Striker who's going to just lade in the enemy with bleeds. And then have your Raider and Skirmisher characters also abuse that. So a character like Omega Red Phoenix Force, he's a new character. You maybe not have a lot of stars on him because he's an epic character. So maybe we can keep him as a skirmisher for this, give him that extra focus boost, and he'll still get that devastating ISO attack off, which is going to extend debuffs and also do 10% damage if you got that the Awakened Basic there. So let's head on over to the website, and I will share these save squads with you guys when all is said and done, but I want to show you that I segmented it off with these minions here to kind of isolate, like, hey, I think these teams would be great in Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3, Stage 4, and just so you understand what you're looking at, you're not wondering what's going on with this minion. But for this Stage 1, I think on the defensive side, kind of flipping the script a little bit, instead of having a fast character with Strike to put ISO out, we instead have Morgan, who I would want to be a Striker here, goes first, gets some bleeds out, and then we have this retaliation team that if they get a single attack off with their new stats, they're pretty tanky, they can get a lot of efficiency or even kills off your opponent. The benefit of this team is it is super budgetary to your Crucible roster. Like, you are not going to use these guys on defense, or sorry, on offense. Defense, they don't really make sense in any other room, so this is great. And also, if your opponent doesn't show this team the right respect with these reworks, they will pay for it. It's kind of a bait team. A not bait team, though, would be Odin Illuminati. We did see this get used in the Crucible tournament in Stage 1. I don't think this is the final stage for the Odin Illuminati team. I think that actually belongs to Stage 6. But if we're trying to use a different team in Stage 6, this is a great option because they don't really function that well in, say, Stage number 3, I think it is. So this team does get kind of beat up by the new Phoenix Force team, which benefits from this room. But if you are having a giant Illuminati team and a pretty big Odin, then you're not probably too worried about those free-to-play Omega Reds just yet. Another option here would be Superior 6. This team is, well, they're not falling off for sure, but they will be kind of the next team that gets pushed from offense to defense. Them or Cabal, I guess, though I think Cabal still has a lot of life in sort of plug-and-play use, whereas Superior 6, they want to be a full team. This team, I would make, again, Goblin would be a Striker in this case, everyone else would be a Raider. They will pull certain teams here, though they will probably get beat quite handily, but if you're doing nothing else with them, it's a great way to tax your opponents, like Immortal X-Men, for instance. All right, let's get back to the slides. Spec Ops, Stage number 2. All characters on successful dodge gain stealth. Characters with stealth gain 20% damage. Tips of success in this room: completely ignore it. This stage is not really worth the headache of trying to make it meaningful. At least not yet. Mostly because everything that you can put in this this stage that is super interesting, we kind of want for either Stage 3 or Stage 6. So we're not going to get too much play out of it. And for that reason, I'm just going to be throwing my Spider Society in there with maybe a Lizard, maybe a Pre-Taunt, maybe just something, maybe even just the full team. Let the enemy walk over it. Hopefully, you know, your Peter B. Parker will get some heals off, sap a little bit of efficiency, but this is a gimme room, and nothing you're going to do here is really going to change that, unfortunately. Stage 3, Momentum. Now, this stage, I think, is actually going to set the tone for your success the Crucible season. Special abilities. Cost 2 more ability energy. Ultimate abilities cost 2 less, so that means characters that don't normally start with their ultimate can. Characters that normally want to start with their special will not be able to. And when an enemy character dies, all characters gain 1 ability energy. Tips of success for this room: you need to master this room. This room, I do think, will dictate what you put in this room is going to dictate how many defensive wins you're going to get. Because I think stage 6 is kind of set in stone. I do have an ulterior to like what I think is going to be the apex predator of that stage. But this stage is kind of in flux. There's a lot of things we can do here. We need to lean into characters that will nuke enemies with a turn 1 ultimate. That could be your Mephisto. That could be a Super Skrull. An endgame Thanos. A Kang. Like a Kahori. A single target burst. Like that. There's a lot that goes on there. To protect whatever character is doing that nuke, on the defense, we want to use big tanks to avoid the single target burst. On the offensive side, we want to use ways to get around the big tanks, essentially, right? And speed is the most important stat to manipulate by far. This is a turn-based game. That is kind of simply always the case, but no more true than right now. So this Super Skrull Pav Annihilator team is kind of like the base team that we have seen go into this stage in the U32 and in the Envoy tournament. This team gets beat up quite handedly by a Kahori-based offense team. And we'll talk about Kahori in this room if you guys are so inclined. It's not really going to hold, but it would be a very budgetary option if you want to be like a full offense-focused player. This second team is brought to us by another Envoy, a content creator who goes by the name of Dulom. I think it's pretty interesting. So we have our 3 Annihilators, which stops Cabal members. We have Black Knight, who will attacking Kahori's damage, and 2 taunts, which could prevent us from getting to this middle. And I didn't put anybody in this middle because you have a lot of options that can go here. Probably this green fella or this red fella. And those are going to be 2 characters with gigantic damaging ults. And if we can't get to them and take them out in time, that's going to be a problem. This stage 3 is nowhere near as powerful as the U32 stage 1 for a character like Kahori, so I can absolutely see this posing a problem, though with the addition of diamonds to some people's Shadow King, it may still not be enough. But I'm interested to see how this plays out. Just make sure you fill that 5th role with one of these 2 heavy hitters. Another option would be a Mephisto with Illuminati. There's a lot of interest here, but this hinges on a really important idea. That your opponent does not have Mephisto on offense. If your opponent has Mephisto on offense and you throw these guys on defense, you're in for a world of hurt. Because all they got to do is get a slow on your Mephisto or reduce his speed stat. Their Mephisto goes first, gets an ult off. The enemy Mephisto will not be getting that ult off, and the enemy Illuminati would be hurt in a big way. Teams that could do that, Superior 6 would come in and remove the speed up from the Illuminati members. They won't get slow because heroes cannot get slow when Hank Pym is on the field, but Mephisto would. And that would be a big problem for you. A big old problem for you. Okay, so just get that out of the way. But if they don't have Mephisto on offense, this becomes a problem. Because as Kahori is kind of one of the main attacker options for this room, Captain Britain says, Kahori, stop right there. I could also see Captain Britain kind of becoming a plug-and-play character on this stage, but then the rest of his Illuminati team is kind of garbage. It's really going to depend on how Omega Red Phoenix Force finds his way into the meta. If he's destroying all Odin Illuminati camps, then we'll probably see Captain Britain pulled off to go do his own adventures. But this is an option for you guys. Heading on to stage number 4, Resolve. All characters on death, all allies gain offense up. On death, apply trauma to all enemies. We were kind of concerned about what this actually meant, but we found out in the tournament. When you kill a summon, the team who that summon belonged to will get offense up. The team that took out that summon will get trauma. So it's whenever you take out an enemy, you get trauma, they get offense up. So we want to avoid taking out weaker characters, particularly summons, unnecessarily, especially right away. Kestrel could very well return to the meta. I kind of expect her to. And look to nuke enemy teams either before or after their attacks. What does that mean? I don't want to say we're facing off against an Orcus team with Night Stalkers. I do not want to take out Scientist Supreme and then all of a sudden I just gave Nimrod offense up. He's using his attack right away. His damage is like the 4th highest in the game and I just die. Or I just lose crazy efficiency, right? So we want to be careful when we're taking characters out, or we want to be able to blow them up all right away. So here's a couple of the defensive teams I'm thinking about. I don't think this is any surprise. Orcus comes to mind because of that summon that gets their on spawn and all the damage that comes there. The Dormammu here I think is pretty interesting because this actually can beat a Mortal X-Men. At least I've had my Immortal X-Men lose to this team just because Scientist Supreme actually died her first death before Storm ulted. She cleansed everybody, and it was a bad time. It was not a good time to be me. That I thought was very, very interesting. But this team here with the Emma Frost X-Men, this is a bait team, and it is going to catch a lot of people off guard. Because up until the most recent patch, Emma Frost X-Men's passive to stop speed stat gain did not work when she was on the defensive side. It does now. They did a lot of fixing, probably because they're trying to get people to enjoy Astral on the defensive side more often. So what this will accomplish is reducing Night Stalker's highest speed character, Blade, to be back at 127. Scientist Supreme will be the first character to go in that matchup. She will put slow on the enemy team. She will put speed up on her Orcus allies. Normally, this would mean Blade flips that slow into speed up and they go first, because they have the speed stat and they have the speed up. With Emma sapping that 20% speed stat, it is now a coin toss between Lady Deathstrike and Blade, who's going to go first. But more importantly, if this summon exists, Nimrod will get speed stat, and he will go before Blade. So all of a sudden, you would have Nimrod hitting into defense down on the enemy. This could erase a lot of Night Stalkers right away. This could be the bait match that is going to cost a lot of people that are opening Crucible matches. So curious, very, very, very curious on how that is going to go. Let's head on over to Stage 5, and this is going to be on spawn, gain Revive Ones, and immunity to all mutant characters. I don't think you really want to build into this. Is a lot like Stage 2. Just do not force Extreme X-Men into this room. Like, do not force your Nightcrawler into this room, essentially. Like, if you need Nightcrawler on the offensive side, which I think a lot of people use him for various Odin Illuminati compositions, the counters there, you probably want to keep your Nightcrawler. Don't force him here because there's so many teams that are going to beat it. And when we get to our offensive list and kind of show, like, where these offensive teams are allocated, you're going to see that, like, using Nightcrawler here is just asking to get beat by a certain team. Anyway, lean into new mutant characters on the defensive side, such as Emma Frost or Shadow King. That's really only if you want to be super turtly. I'll show you what my plan is for Stage 5, and this is it here. I'm not doing anything crazy, right? We have Astonishing, Extreme, and Unlimited characters all on the same team with a Captain America because he gives deflex. The reason for the deflex, by the way, is just so Black Cat comes in, she rips off the revives. I do think that the Captain America deflex can stop that, and it could also cause issues for, like, new warriors. If you want something more guaranteed, you would bring in, say, Phantom X here. He will also give dodge. I believe it's to X-Men characters, but it might be just to the Unlimited characters. But you'd at least still keep some of your revives. One thing to note for this stage, and we'll go back to that slide. Understand the mechanics of this room, because this room is definitely not as good as it is advertised as. The immunity, that's cool. The revive, it is a really, really bad revive. So the revive in this stage revives you with, wait for it, 1 life. So when Rogue dies, if she has that revive, she'll come back to life with 1 life. So a slight breeze, any sort of AoE, just knocks her right down again. Not the best room to kind of put your eggs in that basket, unless we get some normal mutants in the game. Stage 6, Charging Power. I think this stage is going to have the kind of the apex defense team that is the puzzle to solve for this season of Crucible. And then Stage 3 is going to be the variable that we get to move around. On spawn, generate 5 ultimate ability energy. On ultimate ability use, apply ability block to all allies. So keys to success for this guy. It's the second most important room, so make sure you master it. We want to find creative ways to make the ability block work for you. Make the ability block work for you, whether that be on the defensive or the offensive side. And be ready for chaos, because that ability block is going to cause a lot of things to work differently than you would otherwise be prepared for. And these are the teams that I think fit that room the best. I think Odin Illuminati fits it the best. And the reason for that is the main counter to this team is making sure Odin does his special without having done an assist. It's the Phoenix Force with Echo and a bunch of other characters. Make sure Odin doesn't do his assist. So if he doesn't do his assist and then he does his special, he does not get the battlefield effect, which is what makes Odin so deadly. Why is that? Well, Black Panther Shuri, little known fact here, she actually will not use her ultimate unless she has 3 charges. So she is still going to open up with her special, which is a horrible attack to have to walk into on the defensive side, on the offensive side. Hank Pym will use his ultimate, which is going to put trauma and slow on everybody. And that's going to put ability block on Odin. So when it becomes Odin's turn, instead of doing that special, which is a really big heal, gets a lot of buffs, but if he hasn't an assist, no battlefield effect, he simply does his basic. Rips off a bunch of buffs, heals himself tremendously, and most importantly, you guessed it, activates that battlefield effect. That is going to cause a huge issue. I am curious to see if he is still gottable with, say, a Mephisto on the offensive side, but this is going to absolutely be a nightmare team. And it could be even more of a nightmare team if, say, you put Mephisto and Odin on the same team. Curious how that'll work out, though. Very curious. Another option, and I'll give this credit to Saw Owner, the #1 Crucible player, Kahori and Mephisto have a super interesting interaction here. So Kahori, unless there's a Captain Britain there, or a Immortal X-Men team, she will open up with her ultimate. And when she opens up with her ultimate, she will give ability block to Mephisto. She's also then going to use her basic, then her special. She's going to do a tremendous amount of damage. But what this is going to cause Mephisto is when he does his empowered turn, he's going to use the empowered basic attack. So the empowered ultimate attack gives you exhaust. That sucks. And then gives a bunch of buffs and a bunch of buffs to his team, a bunch of debuffs to your team, right? But when he does the empowered punch, it's like an Apocalypse Falcon punch, where it does 50% of your max life. They still get the buffs. They still give you the debuffs. This would be a nightmare. I'm not sold that the 3 Annihilators would be the best fit for this 2-piece, but this would be an absolutely deadly 2-piece. And by the way, if you think you would use Immortal X-Men here, you could use Immortal X-Men here after 2 burn attacks. If you walk into this with Immortal X-Men, Mephisto is still going to absolutely cover you in those debuffs. You're not going to accomplish anything. He's going to ult you, and he's going to ult again on the next attack. So it wouldn't matter. So Immortal's not going to beat this. Just throwing that out there, unless you do 2 burn attacks. All right, that's the defensive side. That's the room talk. Let me know what you guys feel about all that, but let me show you my offensive roster that I'm playing with that kind of stuff in mind. Immortal X-Men and a Cabal Kang. I put Black Cat here, just maybe I'll use these guys in Stage 5. These 2 teams, and honestly, the Superior 6 team as well, these 3 teams, they're going to kind of float. They're either going to take on Stage 1, which could be like this team here, or maybe it'll be a Superior 6, or maybe it'll be a Spider Society. Stage 5, which will be some sort of weak X-Men team. Like these 3 teams, they're just going to kind of float to wherever they can go, because they are not going to be able to tackle Stage 3 if it's any sort of respectable Stage 3. Especially the Immortal X-Men, because they need their specials on spawn. And they're not going to mess with Stage 6, because those 2 stages are going to be stacked. So the other stages is where these 3 teams are going to thrive. And so these are going to kind of be auto wins, in my opinion. They would need to have something crazy for it not to be an auto win. And besides a Mephisto or an Odin, which would have, much easier counters to come up with outside of Stage 3 and 6, like there's nothing really going to hold these guys back. Then I have a Kahori-based team. So we have Kahori, Guardian for offense up, Shadow King, because he would assist off any kind of Kahori ultimate. Apocalypse is an increase, I believe, 20% damage, 20% health, and he has that anti-focus on spawn on the enemy's first attack. And then I have an open slot. This open slot, it really depends on what I need. If I'm facing off against a big Mephisto team, maybe I want to have my Mephisto here as well. Maybe it's something a little bit less sketchy and I can come in here with my Old Man Logan. Maybe I want to break up my Cabal, bring Iron Patriot down here and give Shadow King an additional 60% damage. Like there's a lot that I could put here. So I leave this slot empty. It's going to depend on what you're attacking, what you want to put here. If it's a weaker team, you could also put regular Thanos here. OG Thanos. He gives energy to Kahori because she is a Cosmic character and she can kind of spam ults in Stage 3. That's actually part of the reason why I won the Envoy tournament, oddly enough. Then we have the Night Stalkers. So we do have Night Stalkers with Kestrel to kind of counter that Stage 4. If there is an Emma on this team, I will be taking my Man-Thing off, because Man-Thing's only real use is giving you that speed bar advantage. If I do see an Emma with Orcus, I will take Man-Thing off, and I will put somebody here that'll give me an additional speed bar bump. Maybe that could be Kang. Maybe that could be OG Emma to reduce the enemy. Like, there's a lot of things that I can do there, right? So a little bit of interesting work there. This is a cheap counter that I just put together for any sort of stage 5. But I will probably rarely use this because stage 5 will likely be handled by some of these guys, if not a Night Stalkers if I don't need them against some sort of Orcus team. But this would be just kind of the theory behind beating any sort of X-Men comp. Anti-Safeguard for Rogue, Gambit, or any of the Unlimited members. Some anti-revive Black Cat, a big burst damage, and some sort of control. You could probably also get use out of like your new warriors in that room with like an Ares to take the Safeguard off. There's a lot of things you can do there. It's quite easy room to tackle. But this is just an idea of like a hodgepodge hybrid that I would play around with. And this would be my pride and joy team. This is a huge offensive team. This is a team that does beat Odin Illuminati in all the rooms I faced that team off against so far. I don't know if it'll work in that stage 6. In that stage 6, Echo kind of becomes useless. I might allow myself to eat those Odin pings and bring in Apocalypse if I don't need him up here to give myself that extra damage, give myself that extra life, and hope that that is enough to kind of bridge that gap. That remains to be seen though, but this is kind of my super offensive team. And honestly, if I have an Odin Illuminati in stage 1, I could put Apocalypse instead of Mephisto here, and Mephisto can move up to help carry this team or to do his own team, whatever he needs to do, wherever I need to aim that nuclear weapon called Mephisto, right? And these 4 characters down here, they're just kind of plug and play characters I could use for whatever my needs may be. Maybe I take out the Echo, I put Nightcrawler so I can get a stun on the Captain Britain before he takes a turn. Maybe I throw Old Man Logan in up here. Heck, maybe I throw Falcon in up here to give myself a bunch of speed bar as well. It all depends on what I need. You got a pre-taunt? I got an Ultimus for you. So once again, guys, these save squads will be shared with you guys. If you want to jump ahead, if I haven't put them in the comment section so far, let me go ahead and go them all. We'll hit share. And this would be your code right here. I know that their text is a little bit hard to get down. I will put this in the comment section the second somebody reminds me if I haven't done already. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it found you well. I hope you guys are happy, healthy, having fun if you like this video. And hopefully, if it helps you in your Season 13 climb for Cosmic Crucible, leave the video a like, share it with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. You guys have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. That's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.